Now what will it be? Death or exile?
Hello, welcome everyone back to a special episode of the Film Exiles podcast. Coming back with us today, we have Manu. I'm Millennial Mike, and we have a super special guest. We are so honored, so happy to have him on today. That is David Raymond, the director of the upcoming Night Hunter, otherwise known as codename Nomis, right?
Yeah, Nomis was definitely my title, but it is called Night Hunter.
It's funny that you mentioned that. I am following you on Twitter, and I saw you posting about Nomis, and you kind of didn't really. I mean, I'm not sure if it's okay for me to say this, but you kind of didn't really acknowledge the Night Hunter title. It sounds like you're kind of corroborating my statement now that Night Hunter is, that's but Nomis is that's your movie, right?
Well, here's the thing, and this is, learning curve for me too, but I clearly prefer the title Nomis, but that's part of, independent filmmaking when your film gets bought. And I, to Saban's credit, I really like the team over there, and I think, it's a good home for the film. Nomis, firstly on that, Nomis, there is a narrative reason for the title. And so to avoid spoiling it for people, what I can say is our villain, Simon, is obsessed with his reflection. That is one of his character traits, hence the title Nomis. When Saban bought the movie and, effectively what they'd said was, look, we've done some research and purely for economic reasons, they were sort of saying because of their business model and how they market movies and how the independent space is at the moment and where people purely economically make their money in this space, they said, look, we will do infinitely better if we change the title to Night Hunter, which is what we like. And put it this way, I'm very grateful to the finances of the film for backing the movie. And I'm not allowed to say no to Saban, and B, half of me, obviously I have to wear two hats. One of them is my sort of director creative hat, and I love the title Nomis. And if we were out in, if the platform release had been different, I would be able to fight to keep the title. However, because of Saban's interests, and also candidly, the interests of the finances, the film, I made my opinion, but I didn't want to fight too hard because at the end of the day, we're making
the content's what's most important.
Exactly, and I want to make sure I don't want my creative ego to get in the way of people who have supported us making this in the first place, and so. I wholeheartedly support the title and, want us to do well for everybody involved.
Right. I appreciate you telling us all about that right out the gate. Maybe we can get to know each other first.
That's all right. We'll cover all the contentious stuff first.
Yeah, right.
On that note, why don't you tell us, are you a fan of pineapple on pizza? Because that's something that everybody wants to know.
I just don't support fruit on pizza.
There you have it. You heard it here first.
You just made a bunch of enemies now.
Friends.
You've been formally canceled. Okay, so maybe we can ask David, where are you from? I'm hearing an English accent, so I can make assumptions, but I don't like to do that.
No, you're right. So I was born in a place called Hertfordshire in England, which is sort of north of London. I actually grew up in a place called Botany Bay, which is where I also used to play cricket. But it's in between a place called Enfield and Potters Bar. So just sort of north London, which is where most of my family still live. And I moved to LA probably 8-9 years ago now. Yeah. So I managed to get home, but never enough. You know, living in LA, you tend to miss home, and then you go home for a week, and you're like, I don't miss the underground, all the crap weather. I miss the food and the people, and then you get yourself back to LA and get your head down and do some work.
Ah. So Manu, would Chris know where that's at? Lupe?
They might. I have no
Are they
idea.
hop, skip, and a jump? I have no idea. Yeah, we have some friends on the podcast actually that are in your general vicinity.
Okay.
Actually, they live in Manchester.
Okay, very good.
I said general.
Right. I used to play a lot of sport, and Manchester is renowned for its curries. Very good Indian restaurants in Manchester.
Yeah, that's what Chris always tells us.
Yeah.
Are you an EPL fan by any chance?
I am, yeah. Well, actually, candidly, when you guys reached out, I started listening to a lot more of your stuff, and I was like, this is actually really good.
Oh, that means the world to us, Dan.
That's very kind of you. Thank you for saying that. So when did you become interested in filmmaking?
So, I mean, I can't really remember. I don't know about you guys. I always remember seeing the first film I ever saw in the cinema. You know, I have three brothers, and my childhood was, I was blessed to have a happy childhood, firstly, thanks to my parents. But also my childhood was sport and movies, and that's literally all I did. It's amazing I managed to get through school and then university. But, we would, you'd come home from school, go and play football in the garden, and then watch movies until mum yells at you to go to bed, and then find a way of watching a movie in bed as well. So my brothers and I were always these sort of huge film geeks. But I think the first film I remember going to see in the cinema was Batman. You remember Tim Burton's Batman?
Oh, yeah.
1989.
There was a 12. I think it was the first 12 rating, which was sort of the censorship thing. And I remember my older brother snuck me into the cinema, and I was just, you sort of sit there like, oh my God, this is amazing. And then a few months later, I think he snuck me into Terminator 2, and I was like, okay.
You have a great brother.
Yeah,
I do. Yeah, I guess you know what he we sort of, we're now both directors, but we went about it very different ways. So he went to Pinewood at sort of 16, left school and started doing, he was a runner for years, and he was always the sort of the more outward film geek, running around the house with a camcorder. And I played a lot more sport, but I always wanted to, this sounds silly, I always wanted to be him because we both loved movies, but he embraced it and I was too busy running around kicking a football around. But beneath the surface, we always loved movies. We would literally stick, Goonies and E.T. and Star Wars on repeat, where the VHS tapes would just be in tatters, and we'd scream and yell until my dad went and bought a new one. So, but he sort of led the way, and then I went to university and studied politics of all things, and around that sort of time, it's a bit weird, really. The reason why I came to LA, in England, you never really think, back then anyway, you never think a career in movies is possible. You never even, because in the schools that most of us go to, there's drama, but if you're, back then, I loved doing drama, but you never had time to do drama and sport, and so I was always playing sport. And it's not really a profession you think is possible. You just think there's this, you think Hollywood is this land where aliens are, and there's no way of getting there, getting into it or anything. And so it sounds silly, but you sort of follow the path already laid out in front of you, which is you're just sort of following the crowd, which is why I went to school and did GCSEs and A levels, and then you go to uni because everyone else does. And the uni I went to, you're sort of the whole crowd always ended up in, law, banking, accountancy, management, anything that the sort of the university told you, well, this is now your next step. You need to go and get, this level degree to go and make that next step. So I sort of followed the crowd for years and years and ended up doing a banking job and just for about 12 months and literally hated it. And you sort of, I reached a point in my life where I could tell I'd be good enough to make money at it, but I would be utterly miserable in 10 years. And I didn't want to be the sort of guy who was like, oh, if I just do this for 10 years, then I'll go and do what I want to do. I stubbornly was like, well, I think it was, maybe I get it from my dad, but I was so annoyed that I wasn't doing what I loved, which was doing something in film. Instead of doing any work in this banking job, I literally wrote a script in Microsoft Word. You can imagine the day I discovered what Final Draft was.
Yes,
I felt like throwing a computer against a wall.
I totally understand that. Final Draft is a discovery of, like, we owe so much to Final Draft.
Yeah, well, because I didn't know what Final Draft was. I spent most of my time in the city, hiding my computer from people who couldn't see I was writing a script. And in Microsoft, you'd Google stuff back then and you'd see how a script was meant to be laid out. And I just thought people just hit spacebar to make it look that way. My God, it was infuriating. But anyway, so I think it was around the time Lord of the Rings, I remember watching the Return of the King trailer on repeat. And by then I'd sort of watched on, time and time again, I think the makings of the Lord, because I love those books and I thought the films were just a complete masterpiece. And I remember watching the making of Two Towers literally every weekend and not going out and just almost soaking it up and learning. And I was so jealous that people got to do that for a job, that I just said, fuck it, that's what I want to do with my life. And how do I get into it? And so I thought, well, the one great thing about writing is, for the most part, it doesn't really matter what your CV is or what you've done, because it's words on a page. You could be a no one, but if you write a great script, it's a great script. And eventually, I'm slightly more cynical now, but it's still true, which is, yeah, I mean, look, and I say this for anyone wanting to get into film. If you want to write your way in, there's literally nothing stopping you writing a script, and in 3 months or however long it takes you to write it, it could get in the hands of someone that you then have a career doing it. And that's that's how I viewed it, which was, just go for it. And I remember, I'll never forget, one of the best days of my life was posting. I wrote a script called Heroes and Villains, which was it was back in the Richard Curtis days when, Four Weddings and a Funeral and all those sorts of movies were out. And, they were they still stand up today. But back then it was like, I thought, oh, well, I can have a crack at writing a British romantic comedy. So
Manu has a few things to say about that.
Yeah, and one of the things in my life was actually, it sounds so silly, but posting it. Back then there wasn't, or maybe there was, I don't know. But I would wait till everyone left the job at the bank, print off 50 scripts, which saved me a load of money because it was really expensive. And then I would post them on the weekend. And it was the most liberating, sort of best feeling ever when you've sent a script to someone, and I think I just sort of found addresses of British production companies and sent them this script, and it felt great. It felt like I'd taken my first sort of giant first step. I mean, I was pretty naive back then, but just going for it sort of made the world of difference. And it was only a couple of them that said, oh, this is all right. What do you want for it? And I asked for a job. I was like, well, you can have the script for free, but can I come and work for you? And, back then everyone was like, well, no, but we'll give you $5,000 for your script. And I was like, well, that doesn't really mean I'm going to learn anything. And in the end, a few years later, I managed through my brother to meet a few people and scrounged around, and I ended up making it, and I was in it. I was pretty terrible, but James Corden was in it. The film is pretty unwatchable, but the premise and the script was all right. But
Other Man, the short film you did?
No, I'm talking about Heroes and Villains.
Okay.
So my Microsoft Word script actually ended up getting made, but it's terrible. So if anyone looks it up, please don't. But it was how I realized that I wanted to be a director, because when you write something and then you hand it over to somebody, you lose all sorts of control, and then what's in your head then doesn't translate. It's incredibly frustrating creatively for yourself. And that sort of thought, when I realized, I think my destiny is being a writer director. I just had no idea it would take me this long to get to a place where I'm actually managing to do it.
Mm-hmm.
But
and you're doing great.
So far. Many lessons learned for the next one, put it that way.
As there always is.
Yeah.
So you've said a few things that really interested me. So you said, that early movie days for you was Burton, Cameron, later on Lord of the Rings. You said that in England there wasn't like a lot of encouragement. I guess the flow of things wasn't to get into movies. How do you feel like the overall encouragement and the push for filmmaking and movie and movies and whatnot is in England compared to how it is over here, in the US?
I think, to be honest, I never went to film school or anything like that, or acting. I never learned the art of filmmaking or acting or anything like that. So I don't, if I'm being really honest, I don't actually know what the difference would be between doing that in the UK or in the States. What I will say is, it's more that it was never even an option that got discussed back then. And maybe because, when I was a kid, there wasn't the internet and things like that. So probably things have changed now, where a 14, 15-year-old who's sort of thinking about what they want to do for the rest of their life can research, okay, well, how do I be a writer, or how do I be a director?
Mm-hmm.
Back then, it was formula. You go to school, and then if you don't drop out of school, you go and do your A levels, and if you don't fail your A levels, you go to university, and then you get a job. At no point in that whole, phase did doing anything creative ever really come up. I mean, even for the drama kids in school, when I was injured in sport, I'd then go and do drama, and I realized I loved it. It was an itch I never could get rid of, thankfully. But you never had time to do both. So, but the idea of going and doing this professionally, it never really came up until I was so annoyed at myself for not pursuing it. I sort of forced myself to, and even my older brother, he went for it much earlier than I did. And I guess because he'd gone for it and I'd sort of done the stubborn, well, no, it's never going to happen, and I would just go and do what my friends do. I guess him going for it earlier gave me probably gave me the confidence to say, okay, well, maybe it's not a closed industry. You just have to figure out how you juggle your way into it, and then figure out where you fit into, making films or television.
So where would you feel like your sensibilities came from, with filmmaking? Where you feel like it came from?
Here's the thing, everyone, I hope the days of, well, you've written a thriller, so now you're a thriller guy. You can't write anything else. I think those days are gone, gratefully, because, I've written a bunch of stuff over the years, some of which has almost got made, some of which, now that I've made my first film, it's, things change a little bit, because I think people look at you as a real filmmaker rather than, an almost filmmaker. And as a writer director, I write what I love, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I grew up in that amazing era of Spielberg, like many of us. Spielberg, Donner, George Lucas. That's like the holy grail. So Star Wars and E.T. and the Goonies and, Richard Donner's Superman. That for me is the holy grail of filmmaking. And then as I've got older, I love, the sort of the Christopher Nolan, Sam Mendes, Ang Lee, David Fincher world of sophisticated original storytelling. So I, having said that, I love Transformers 1. I thought that as a kids movie is one of the best ones ever made, and I still think it stands up.
I agree.
Yeah.
Transformers 1 is amazing.
I love that stuff.
Yeah,
It's great.
And
Yeah.
mad respect. Yeah, I agree.
And so that for me is sort of those are the types of stories that I want to tell, and they're very much representative in the scripts that I've written. Nomis came about, candidly, I think I tried to make I'll give you another example. I wrote a script called Absence of War, which was and still is a spy thriller set in the private sector of intelligence. So the whole idea is, what if James Bond leaves MI6 and goes and works in the private sector? And, from a real world basis, that's pretty much what a lot of, agents and clandestine, spies, whatnot, that's exactly what they've gone and done. And there's a reason for it, which is, oversight, congressional oversight, blah, blah, blah. I could talk about it all day. But I wrote this script and it was well enough received. And we almost made it. And then, the whole independent film market had just begun to change. And everyone was sort of saying the same thing, which is, this is way too expensive to be your first film. You need to come up with something that's contained, that is more of a genre piece that the sales agents, which is sort of the integral cog of independent film and financing, can get behind. And really, that's where Nomis came from. It wasn't, I woke up 30 years ago and said, oh my God, I've got this great idea for a movie. It was done out of, I realized I had a story I wanted to tell, but it also is part of,
necessity.
It's necessity, and it's also wanting to, realizing that we're not all Spielberg, and your first film can't be some mega, and I know obviously he started in commercials and TV, but it was, look, I need to prove that I can direct and tell a story and get performances and so, Absence of War sort of went away. I still have it, and I've actually just set it up with someone I'm very excited about, but there's a natural order to things. Not everyone can go and make Ragnarok as their second movie, which was you know what I mean? Like there's a process here of from a size of movies. Most of the stuff I tend to gravitate to has enormous spectacle, but very much those sort of intimate character stories at their heart, like a lot of the Donner, Spielberg-y sort of era. That's the stuff I gravitate towards. But there's there's stepping stones to getting to tell those types of stories. So I might be waffling, but anyway. So I write what I watch. I know that sounds really silly, but so I've got original sort of family-driven entertainment that hopefully is my next feature, fingers crossed, and then sort of more of the sophisticated, political type of drama thrillers that I also want to do. I never want to get boxed in. Actually, I'll give you a really good example. Craig Mazin. You guys seen Chernobyl?
Yeah.
Not yet. I need to.
I don't know whether there's sense. Am I allowed to swear on this, or do we delete
Yes,
it?
you're fine. Go ahead.
Yeah. Please go ahead.
Fucking amazing.
It really, really is. It's
really,
it's
genuinely amazing. It is so well written,
Yeah, it
and
is.
directed, and performed, and the score. The whole thing for me was like just music.
Yeah,
And
it's from
but
top to
you look at
bottom.
yeah, and I'd never heard of sorry if he ever stumbles across it. I'd never heard of him. I didn't know who Craig Mazin was, but I immediately looked him up and was like, holy shit, who's this? This is amazing.
Yeah,
And
I think
then
he
you
used
look
to
at
he
IMDb
wrote
and you see like he'd written a bunch of comedies, and
comedies. Yeah,
I think that's where, hopefully with people like him breaking barriers of, well, you're this guy, that means you should only do this. I think hopefully those days are gone, because I've got a lot more stuff other than
yeah. I
some
mean, I
Yeah.
think we're also seeing
thrillers.
it with we're also seeing that with Todd Phillips, who made his name with those Hangover movies and a lot of his comedies from the
Now
late
he's doing Joker.
90s,
Yeah.
and now he's
Well, that's
doing
it. You look at The Hangover, and now The Joker looks
yeah,
amazing.
Yeah.
Totally different genre, but again, I think it just comes to, if someone's got a take and a vision, and people get behind them, then great. So,
yeah.
hopefully,
Well, you mentioned Stepping Stones earlier. Your previous work before Night Hunter was a short film called The Other Man. So,
yes.
how is it to go from working on a short film to working on something like Night Hunter, which is as you said, it is an indie film, but you have some top tier Hollywood talent on this cast. You have Henry Cavill, Alexandra Daddario, Ben Kingsley, Stanley
Tucci. Yeah.
Tucci. I mean, it's Nathan Fillion, and even your lesser known cast of characters seem to be promising. How was the experience going from The Other Man to working on something with such heavy hitters? I think is the right way of describing it.
I mean, weirdly, it was kind of similar, mainly because you never have enough time or enough money to shoot. um, but look, it was, for all of the enormous cast, and I got very, very lucky, and I feel very blessed to
Yeah, you
have,
did.
yeah, I feel very lucky and very blessed to work with such amazing people who are also, and everyone sort of noted on set, they were all so nice and so collaborative and so generous that, it was a wonderful experience with my actors. It really was. Having said that, the constraints around being able to shoot what you wanted to shoot was extremely frustrating, because it's, everyone sort of says, well, when you're in the freezing cold, things move a lot slower. Well, they really, really do. And that was sort of, it was a very, very difficult shoot. And there's probably 20% of my script I never got to film, and that's very frustrating, because I think that's the stuff that look, I'm incredibly proud of Nomis / Night Hunter. And I think the strongest thing in there are the performances of the actors, because I think they went above and beyond and really gave their heart and soul. And it was a phenomenal experience for me, collaborating with a number of those actors, and also finding some real I think stars in the future in that, blending sort of the legendary people of, Sir Ben and Stanley, with your more sort of famous names of Henry and Alex, and then even Nathan Fillion, I think, is just the nicest human being in the world, but also incredibly talented. And then finding Brendan Fletcher and Eliana in particular, it was
He did
just
a really good job too. His
yeah,
performance was
he's just
yeah.
I can't say enough great things about that man. But it was a similar experience to the short, because there was never enough time, never enough money, but you just get on with it and make do as best you can. And there were many lessons learned, and I think the only thing that, if I'm honest, I think the thing that where the film is let down is the glue isn't really there, because we just didn't have the time and the resources to be able to get what I needed. But for the most part, I think I just kept telling myself when things got hard or when I couldn't shoot what I needed to, that just keep chasing the emotion of the scenes and rely on these great actors to just let them act. And that will make up for the lack of being able to tell the story with the scale. And when I say glue, what I mean are things like, the things that give a film its proper canvas geographically.
Like the connective tissue, you mean?
Exactly. And so that I think is what was lacking as an entire piece, as it were. But I'm they were a phenomenal group, and I hope I get to work with them again, because every single one of them went above and beyond, and is also very, very nice people, which is rare.
Well,
that helps, I'm sure.
I have to ask, because many of the other members of the podcast and a lot of our listeners are huge fans of Henry Cavill. Can you tell us a little about working with him and about?
Yeah, he do you know what he what's the best way of putting this? He's such an intelligent filmmaker, and I mean that, not just an actor. He is very aware of an overall story and how his character fits into that overall story. And he is a very underrated actor, I think. Everyone knows him as Superman and the guy in the cape, but when he's given a chance to just perform, that guy is amazing. There's so much on the cutting room floor that I didn't need to use, because he gave me so many options. But he's really quite gifted, but also very, very intelligent filmmaker behind, just being an actor. He was a joy to work with, but also just, he's a leader on set, and you need that in your leading actor, because it's, especially when, you start working in the early hours of the night, and when he's prepared to get his hands dirty and stand in the freezing cold, he's an example to the rest of the crew. And I think he's phenomenal.
He brought a good energy, huh?
Yeah, absolutely. Which is great, and you know what, you need that. And also Sir Ben is another one.
Yeah,
these guys have been around long enough where they lead by example, and it lifts everyone out. It's inspiring.
Yeah, especially since it sounds like you guys shot a lot of stuff in the cold, and I'm guessing like you were up at like 2-3 o'clock in the morning, working late, and so on and so forth.
Yeah, well, and that's one of the lessons you sort of learn. But I'll give an example. There's so many scenes in the movie that are daytime that we shot at night.
Oh, really?
Okay. Versa. And here's the reason why. So if you're meant to start filming at 9 o'clock in the morning, and for whatever reason you don't start filming until 11, suddenly your day has pushed by 2 hours. And now let's say there's another delay during the day, so your wrap time pushes another couple of hours, and suddenly there is a huge knock-on effect, because there are scenes that you then either can't film, or you want to film but you then go into overtime, which costs the financiers more money. But really the knock-on effect is you're then affecting your start time the following day, because you have to have legally a certain hour, a break between your working days. When that happens consistently, all of a sudden in a week from when you've started, you start your day at 6 p.m. and you've got a schedule of daytime scenes.
Yeah, I see that. Yeah.
And so suddenly, and you don't have luxury with a small independently financed film of saying, well, let's switch the schedule around or switch the actors around, because you only block out, you have your actors for a certain amount of days and then they're gone, and that's sort of the one of the many lessons I've learned is just from an organizational point of view, but making sure that, there's no room for error, as in you use every single moment you have your cast for, because it's utterly precious. Because when you don't have them and you're playing catch up, it is very challenging, as I sort of said, to get the things that you're missing And that's the beauty of, your larger budget or even your studio movies. It's easy for them because they can go and do pickups with your cast. With us, the reason why we had, from a top level point of view, the reason why we had a delay for the best part of a year was because we moved all of the exterior walking, talking, driving stuff to the end of the shoot because, in Winnipeg, for the most part on night shoots, you're sort of negative 20, 30, which is its own beast. But, we had some stuff. I won't get into spoilers, but we had some stuff on a frozen river, that is actually a frozen river.
Oh, really?
And or not really frozen. It was more of a frozen lake, but it was a real one. And there are days when I'm running around out there during the day, literally jumping on bits of ice to make sure
that it's solid enough,
safe as I was being told it was.
Oh, wow.
By that point, you don't trust anything you're being told, and you're like, if Henry Cavill goes through this fucking ice, my career is over, and I'm going upset. So I literally, you run around, and everyone's like, "Why is Dave jumping up and down on the ice?" And I'm like, "Well, someone's got to fucking test it."
Wow.
So anyway, toward the very, very end of the shoot, we planned to do all the driving stuff, and we had the hottest weekend in Winnipeg history. And I shit you not, we were shooting at night, and when we'd finished shooting, I saw green everywhere and was like, it's not good.
Oh.
So what we basically had to do was the decision was, well, you either go and do the driving stuff in green, Winnipeg country scenery where you can see the color of leaves, and then you visual effects it, which would have been a disaster because, from a finance point of view, we already had run out of whatever we had available to us. Or you come back and do it when the snow is returned, which is what really, I was sort of forced to do. And then that obviously then plays into, okay, you look at your cut of what you've got and what you're missing to be able to tell your story. Henry had then gone on to Mission Impossible, and also the Justice League pickups he was doing. So getting him back was literally impossible. Alex was shooting, but the one I really needed back was Sabine, because there's a crucial scene between him and Brendel Fletcher that we didn't have footage of because it was outside. And so we had to wait for him to be available again, which is why there was such a long delay between pickups and principal photography. So hence, that's the reason why, I shot Nomis 10 years ago. And now it's coming.
Hey, better late than never, right?
Yeah. No.
So speaking of the cast, because we all love the cast. How exactly? Can you tell us the process of how this cast happened? Because I don't imagine it's super easy to get a cast like this, unless it is, and then you can educate me on that.
So how it works is, and it's it's in casting is for all you filmmakers out there who are trying to get your first film made. How it actually works is you make an offer to an actor, and inevitably. Their agents will read it and cover the script, and then you'll literally sit there twiddling your thumbs until you get a response. And how it works is you can't go to more than one actor at a time. So if you make an actor an offer, you have to wait for them to read it and say yes or no, which if some actors for some roles say no, or their agents say no, or you get strung along for a few months, you're literally waiting and waiting and waiting. And that's happened to me on other movies. And then you find out that the actor never even got the script. So it's sort of indie spec. It's very frustrating. Fortunately, with Nomis, I actually wrote Sir Ben's role with him in mind. And again, sort of spoilers and blah blah blah. But this is I thought it would be fascinating to have, effectively a judge who, given loopholes in the legal process, which I think a lot, this sort of era of, the Me Too stuff. You look at like the statute of limitations law, which is ridiculous. If victim only has so long to sort of say this is what's happened to me, I don't. That to me just doesn't make any sense. So anyway, what I wanted to do was have a character that effectively was a judge, and how that have affected him psychologically if his day job was letting people out of jail who he knew for the most part were going to go and reoffend. Yeah. And there are some incredible statistics of sex offenders who, because of whether it's a chemical imbalance, most of them, from the research I found, reoffend. Now, if you're knowingly letting people out that 50%, 80%, whatever the stats are from different journals are, you're letting out people that are going to go and do some harm. Now, how does that affect you psychologically? So I really built a character around that. And well, what if something happened in your life where you said, I've been punished for doing something I knew was wrong, and now I'm going to go and do something about it. There was only really one guy I'd ever wanted to play that. Now, in your first movie, you always write with someone in mind. You never think you're going to get them. And then when Sir Ben had read the script and said, I fancy doing this, and then we've met and chatted. I knew, first one in was always the most difficult. And because it was Sir Ben, I think it gave everyone surrounding the project that was interested in it some confidence, because when someone like that says, I believe in, David and this material, I think it gives you an amazing rubber stamp, because now anyone who thought, oh, this is really cool, but this guy hasn't made a movie before, so pass. It then suddenly changed. And that's when, I'll never forget an agent saying, have you thought about Henry for the Marshall role? Mm-hmm. Now, and Henry knows this, in full candor, I dismissed it because I was like, there's no way Henry Cavill is going to play this role. No way.
Why did you say that?
Well, the guy's Superman. It's,
yeah, I see it.
And also you look at his body of work up until then, it's mostly studio movies, and you think, well, there's no way Henry's going to play a role like this. Now, the more you then think about it, and I was an enormous fan of Man of Steel, like an enormous fan. I really, really was. And actually, and this might be contentious, I thought the execution of Batman v Superman was incredible.
You're talking to the right guys, David.
Yeah.
You're talking
to the matter of fact, this is gonna go in a reel.
Yeah, you're talking to the right guys. We're big fans of Man of Steel, Batman v Superman, and
Zack Snyder. I love that guy.
We're right
this
with
is,
you.
Not to distract, but Zack Snyder is one of the best directors out there. I just felt, but he is. That's just, you look at, here's the thing, I think if the stories that he was telling were more akin to what the market and what kids are looking for, because we grew up in the Donner era, right? And I think no matter how you spin it, but these superheroes are meant to be superheroes, people that you look up to and that kids want to be and kids want to dress up at, in Halloween. I think tonally that's where Marvel have got it absolutely spot on. But his execution of his idea was amazing. I just think that the story, it wasn't the story I wanted to see, but his execution of those things are phenomenal. So,
no, I mean, that's I think that's completely fair, that, we can appreciate the merit of what's, of how it's put together.
Absolutely. And Man of Steel for me is my favorite, DC, probably discounting Mr. Nolan, but I thought Man of Steel was probably still to this day my favorite DC movie that they've made. But anyway,
you appreciate that. I almost lost my chill.
No, you lost it.
I lost my chill.
Well, you really want to get into it? Here's the thing, and knowing Henry as well as I do now, his I don't want to get too far into the whole soups of it all. He's still Superman until he's not, right? And I tell you the thing why I think he is the perfect Superman is you look back at what made the Donner era so brilliant, and the comics is a side of that character that we haven't seen Henry play. And because I know him, he is a very funny, very warm, very genuine, but he has a wry sense of humor. And the Clark Kent I loved, which is a Clark Kent we've never met in any of
in the mud, kind of,
Henry Cavill movies yet, is the Clark Kent who's also a disguise, right? And he's the guy who can wink at the camera, not quite, but wink at the camera, or melt a guy's chair if he's pissing him off, because he's Superman pretending to be Clark Kent. And that is the balance I think that we've missed as an audience, which Christopher Reeve's character had, which is, yes, you've got Superman in a costume, but you've also got his other costume, which is Clark Kent. And that's where the balance I would love to see Henry play, because he's a very funny, human, witty guy. And I think that is a side of that character. If he's given the opportunity to play, he will absolutely crush it.
I think we saw that in The Man from U.N.C.L.E. In a lot of his scenes playing opposite Army Hammer. I think you really get to see a lot of what you're talking about. I think one of my favorite scenes in that movie is when Army Hammer is fighting off a bunch of guys and Henry is in the truck and he's just eating away this guy's lunch. I think that scenes like that really display what it is that you're
exactly. So look, I don't think what's the best way of saying this? Because I think there are some phenomenal people over at DC, and I would love to go and play in that sandpit. I think there's nothing wrong with the guy in the cape. I think you just have to give him a story that befits what he is capable of playing that character.
Sure, yeah. We appreciate all takes. I mean, we have our own opinions. Maybe some of them, align. Maybe some of them, are adjacent or don't align as much. But at the end of the day, I mean, we all appreciate just the artistic merit that's underlying the film. And then there's also the things that go into the film. I mean, like you said, that's part of the reason why the film may have been changed from Nomis to Night Hunter, because it's more marketable, So
yeah, and also there's and I haven't made a studio film yet. Touch wood, I will, but there's a process. It's never there are parts of Nomis that are on screen that are better than I had in my head because of my actors, and I'm so proud and happy and grateful for some of those scenes that I'd scripted and had in my head, and then when I got to collaborate with my actors, it's 1,000 times better than I'd ever come up with. And there's a few scenes in the film that I'm so proud of, but so proud of from my actor's point of view. And there are some stuff that for me is let down, but that's my fault. And that's more about the process of filmmaking and learning how films get made and why you've got to fight for what you need, even though you're up against elements like weather and financing and all the rest of it, and those are the major lessons that I take. But there's a scene between Brendan Fletcher and Alex Daddario. I tell you what, Alex is the other revelation for me. I cast her because I'd seen her comedic work, and she's done a lot of sort of big popcorny movies. But there's something about her that I always thought, I bet you anything she would nail a dramatic role where it's not about, how she looks. And you just pair her right back to, the sort of the human spirit within, as cheesy as that sounds. But that's why I cast Alex. I wanted to try and push the boundaries of like, okay, let's do things that people aren't expecting, so that when you see them doing these things, it's like, holy shit. And there's a scene between Alex and Brendan that I love them both, and it was such a hard day filming, but they both threw themselves at it, and I'm so proud of them. And there's also a scene with Henry and his daughter in the movie, which again is just you get these days on set when no one says anything and the whole crew is just utterly silent, and everyone can feel what your actors are doing. And those days for me are the most rewarding, because you're like, in the back of your mind, you're looking forward to shooting those scenes. But when your actors step up and really give you something heartfelt, that you sort of say, oh, wow, this is pride is probably the best way of putting it. But there's a couple of scenes in the movie for me that are just,
I'm really happy to hear you say that. I'm actually just like you. I've seen a lot of Alex's work on those popcorn movies, and I'm really glad that I get the chance to see her do something very different. And from the sounds of it, from what you're saying, it sounds like she did a great job. And
she's great. She's another one who when you look at what previously, and I mean, obviously Henry's gone on to make Fallout, which is, my God, fucking amazing.
It was
really
like
was.
Fallout is just unreal. It's just unreal how powerful and amazing that movie is. It's incredible.
Look, Chris McQuarrie for me is kind of any podcast coming from him or behind the scenes. That to me gets to be my film school, is listening to people like him talking about the process and the mistakes that they've learned.
Yeah. He's very candid.
Tell him to get on this podcast. Say, hey,
hopefully,
up the ante, elevate the game.
Absolutely. Yeah, he's very candid on social media, and I really love his openness and his honesty about the process. About how he doesn't always get paid, about his own insecurities about his work. I think that really makes it makes it more palatable for people.
Agreed.
To understand that it's not just, oh, we're gonna do this. It's like you really go through it emotionally, as well as everything else that goes around a production.
Yeah, and for people like myself that didn't get to go to film school, that is film school. I spend most of my day, whether it's if I'm in the gym or driving, I'm endlessly listening to behind the scenes, podcasts, documentaries, anything I can to learn from the people I look up to. I just soak that shit up. But just going back to Alex, she and Henry weren't, they weren't really known for doing this sort of dramatic stuff. Now, with both of them, you look at their work pre-Nomis. I just thought there's, that what's right for the character is both of them are able to do so much without dialogue, which I always think is the key to great, truly great actors. Henry's playing a character who candidly hates himself. He knows he's making bad decisions, but there's a very distinct reason why he's behaving the way that he's doing. And he comes up against somebody who, for all of Henry's sort of physical strength, it doesn't mean shit. This guy's just there to pull on his nerves, is probably the best way of putting it. And he's playing a character who's full of regret and sort of almost shame in what he's doing, because he knows what he's doing is wrong, and that's related to his daughter in the movie. So a lot of that you want to play through looks and through physicality and through the way that you walk and how you carry yourself. And there's so much subtlety in Henry's performance. But again, that sort of comes back to what a great actor he is, because when he's allowed to do his thing, he's brilliant, because you can just take a step back and of course, as a director, you give notes and you collaborate together, but really you trust your actors to carry themselves in a way that serves their characters. And Alex is exactly the same. She was very, very well prepared and had done a ton of research about playing a police psychologist. And she's another one. She's also playing a character who is, what's the best way of putting it? Her role is, she's playing a character who is great at giving advice to other people, but can't take it herself. And so she's out to prove something. Her role in the movie is to effectively break into Simon's mind and no one thinks that she's got the smarts to do it or the experience to do it. And so there's the depth to her character, which is all about proving herself. But what I loved about the way that she played it, and as we'd sort of discussed before we started shooting, she's not playing a character who's out to prove something to all the boys in the police station. That's the opposite of what she's doing. She's there to prove something to herself. And I think that comes across in her performance, but it's not in any dialogue. It's just this sort of quiet determination and sort of guts, really. And spoiler warning again, but like that's why for anyone who's watched the movie, Henry doesn't throw a single punch. It's Alex that gets into a physical altercation with Simon, and that was a very deliberate move to not do the obvious.
You would think Henry would be the one doing the punching.
Exactly.
David, you mentioned earlier that there were some scenes that you were really proud of afterwards, and I wanted to ask you, like, because you also wrote the movie.
You're like, what scenes are you not proud of?
No, not at all. But like, so you wrote the movie, so you went from like seeing the scene in your head to actually having the chance to see it play it out in front of you. How was that experience for you? And what are these scenes that you're so proud of seeing, like, after post?
It's incredibly liberating to sort of see your vision in your head sort of come to life, especially when, for the most part, within the realms of restrictions of what you can shoot and where and whatnot. The thing I'm proud of is the performances were as I'd sort of had in my head. What sort of changed more just through the process of filmmaking, as I said, under extremely difficult conditions from a resources point of view, is there's physical elements that are different from in the film to what was on the page, but that's more about what we were able to do given in the means that we had. The original script, and this is, I don't think anyone knows this yet, but the original script wasn't set in this sort of icy cold environment. It was actually set, spoiler warning, stop listening if you haven't seen the movie. But
it was bound to happen.
The original ending of the movie was in a cornfield where our villain puts the girls that he's captured in a burning cornfield so that you can't find your way out very easily. And that's the game, is the game is how many can get out. We had to pivot because I'd started pre-production in Louisiana several months before we ended up even going to Winnipeg, and through some error there was my visa to direct the movie in America came into question whether I would get it in time because it was filed so late. And so I had to pivot also in the script from a burning cornfield in Louisiana, which aesthetically would have put the film in sort of a hot, sweaty, much more middle America feel, which is what the original script was, to then, the decision from the team and the financiers was, well, we can't risk not having, the writer director be able to direct his movie because then there is no movie. And I was like hell, are you going to go and find someone else? So we pivoted to Canada, and then obviously the change of seasons and whatnot. So I had to rewrite, certain scenes and the finale of the movie so that we could shoot in freezing cold Winnipeg, which is, from a physical production point of view, was really the only possibility, because I think Vancouver we looked at was too expensive. And I'll be honest, I liked filming in Winnipeg. There's some lovely people there, and I'll give a shout out to Kenny Boyce, who's the film commissioner, who we actually I named him Kenny the Wolf, as in the wolf in Pulp Fiction, because whenever there was a problem, you call the wolf and he would fix it for you, which became a regular occurrence. But he is, to anyone wanting to go and shoot a film in Winnipeg, reach out to Kenny, because he is he's saved my arse numerous times, and he's a very generous, lovely man. What was your question? I've just been thinking about great scenes that I really liked. I think the scenes, if I'm honest, I think the scenes between Sir Ben and Eliana Jones, who's a newcomer who just blew me away with her audition, which I actually found for you young actors out there who are thinking of quitting, please don't, because Eliana was close to quitting as well. And I ended up, I'd found a couple of options that I really liked for the Lara character, and then we'd lost the actresses to availability. So there was a real hunt on to find my Lara. And I ended up finding her. I think I'll never forget this. This may be getting a bit too intimate, but when you spend all day scouting locations in the freezing cold, and then you get home, at 5 a.m., knowing that your alarm's going off in 3 hours, you tend to lose a bit of physical hygiene. You stop going to the gym and you just eat whatever is around, baked beans out of a tin. And the amount of times I'm like, wow, this is the glamour of Hollywood people don't tell you about. Anyway, so I'll never forget, going through the rejected pile of audition tapes for the Lara character, eating baked beans out of a tin, wearing, my underlayers of winter gear, which I hadn't taken off yet. And I stumbled across this audition from Eliana, who is just so gifted, and such a natural actress, and I think that morning I'd sort of said to the casting director, I want to Skype with her, let's have a chat. And, by that night, I'd cast her in the movie once I'd had a chat to her and seen what she was about. And so for any of you lot who are struggling or thinking of quitting, it really can change, in a moment's notice. You just have to keep going and not give up in what you believe in. Because she, I think she's got an enormous career ahead of her. And I know Sir Ben, as soon as he, did a couple of scenes with her, he just sort of looked at me and nodded, as if to say, yeah, she's great.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for that.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So
I'll definitely be keeping an eye out for her then.
Yeah, she's lovely, but she's got one of those sort of, what's the best way of putting it? She's got one of the personality, forget her looks and whatnot, but she's just got a personality. Since you put a camera in front of her, it the screen sort of comes to life. And it's all natural instinct. I don't think she was trained or anything like that, but she's got a real presence to her.
Awesome.
So can we talk about tech specs now?
Oh yeah, sure. By all means.
So maybe you can kind of nerd out a little bit. You can kind of gush about some of the equipment that you used.
You mean the equipment that worked on the day? I had a director of photography called Michael Barrett, who's done a bunch of stuff, and so we were using the red cameras, I believe. It's probably more interesting to tell you about the stuff that I shouldn't have used that I used. So when you have no budget and you have scenes that you need multiple cameras on, but you have half an hour to go and shoot, ordinarily what most films would shoot in a week, you have to sort of think out the box. Now, I'm sorry, Kenny, for admitting this, Mr. Film Commissioner in Winnipeg. I shot some of this stuff on the fly using other cameras because I knew I needed places to cut to. So, for example, just to give you, let me give you one example. There is a car accident where a car flips in the movie. The car that we tried to flip had frozen, so the battery didn't work. Then we tried to do it a second time, and it happened again. And then the rig that we had to flip the car didn't work. And so you're sort of constantly up against things like that, and it's happening in a very, very crucial part of the film, which is in the run-up to a huge narrative reveal about our bad guy. So anyway, in order to go and get the shots I needed to sell the fact that the car had flipped and there was actually a crash, I then, with a couple of people who I want their careers to continue in Winnipeg, so I won't mention their names, we went and bought, 2 or 3 Sony 7Ss, those little tiny cameras. And at one point, I literally, in Winnipeg, you have these huge piles of snow because they obviously plow the roads. And then, everywhere there are these like 6-foot, piles of snow just sort of sitting there. Now, some of them have concrete under them, some of them don't. So in my rental car, I'm there hanging out the driver's side window with my Sony 7S, hanging it out so I can get, film a tire hitting a spray of snow, hoping that it's going to hit the camera. And after about, 6 or 7 attempts, you just sort of say, well, fuck it, we're running out of light. I need to really go for it. And by then, the Walmart kid comes out saying, you're not allowed to film here. Being funny, but 100 Canadian dollars later, he went back inside with a smile on his face. So then I'm like, everyone get
you had to bribe a Best Buy employee to get this movie made.
A Walmart employee.
Oh, Walmart. I'm sorry.
Yeah, Walmart in Canada. It was Walmart. It was something like that. Anyway, so at that point, I'm like, fuck it. I know I need at least 2 of these angles to be able to cut together so that this car crash looks real, because a car mounts a curb and blah blah blah. So anyway, I'm literally hanging out of my Enterprise rental vehicle whilst driving it, flooring it into a massive pile of snow, whilst holding a Sony 7S camera with my left hand dangling out the car, trying to film the tire and the snow and hoping that I get the spray I need, which actually ended up working. But that's,
movie magic.
I have the sort of cast you'd see in a $200 million studio movie, and yet the writer director is hanging out the back of a car, driving into a pile of snow, trying to get the footage he needs.
Something doesn't connect here. That's if anybody was there to see that.
Oh man!
Yes, clearly it didn't happen. I made all that.
It'll be on the DVD, right? We'll see you hang out the car. Exactly. And we'll see the Walmart kid.
Yeah. So anyway, cut a long story short, from a technological point of view, Sony 7S cameras, if you run out of money or budget, they are phenomenal at giving you camera angles that you wouldn't ordinarily be able to get when you're not technically filming on a day off.
Is there like by the time we drop this interview, the movie won't be released everywhere yet. Is there anything in particular that you want people to like focus on during their first watch? Is there anything that you hope that the audience is drawn to in particular?
I think just enjoy the ride. It's, what's the best way of putting it? It's not on the face of it. It's not the movie you think it is. I think that's the biggest thing I sort of take away. And anyone who's seen the movie so far, and I've had so many, truly lovely messages from people online who have seen the movie, because we're out in a couple of countries so far, and I know they've tried this sort of new tactic where it's on direct TV, for the next couple of weeks, and then we're out in cinemas on the 6th, and the SVOD platforms in quite a few countries around the world. And I think we're in most countries around the world around September. So I think it's just watch it. Hopefully, you enjoy it. And for me, there's the important thing is just the heart and the emotion of it. So you sort of get lost in our characters who, when things got challenging, that's sort of what I clung to, which is just follow the emotion of it, and anything that doesn't make sense or there's some information that's missing from the narrative, just make sure I get the emotional arc of the characters and the story, so that if you care about it, by the time you get to the end, even if there's stuff that you need to kind of see a second time, it doesn't matter, because you've sort of been on that journey with those characters. And I think that's been achieved, hopefully, and a lot of that comes down to my actors and their performances, which, as I said, I'm just very grateful for their work, and I think not only Henry gives a performance that I've never seen him give. And there's a couple of scenes in the movie in particular where the whole set was just entirely silent, watching him in a very intimate scene with his daughter, which is just, I've seen it 1,000 times, and it's hard not to well up with it. But then also, Sir Ben is Sir Ben. He nails things every single time, and it felt a little strange even attempting to direct him on my first day, which is probably the only day I ever sort of lost my nerve for 10 seconds and thought, if you don't speak, this is not going to go well. But also, Brendan, I think what Brendan and Alex have done in their scenes together and Brendan in particular, given the type of role that he's playing, because it's, for the most part, and again, stop listening if you haven't seen the movie, but for the most part, Brendan's playing a character who there is a language he uses and a behavioral pattern that makes sense once you know why. And
because on the trailer, he looks pretty unhinged, He
is, but we sort of talked about it and we rehearsed and I can maybe we'll do another one of these in a month, and I can talk about the process he and I went through to play the various parts of Simon that people get to see. But he gave his all and is such a natural talent that even the stuff I didn't use is just mind-blowing. You could have had an hour of watching that guy play Simon, but what I learned in the edit is, less is more, and we don't want to give too much away. But Alex's role playing opposite that, so much of Brendan's work, and deliberately so, you take the intent of a scene in terms of dialogue, and I would encourage him to remove and just improv whatever he wanted, knowing where we needed to get to at the end of the scene. So there's a natural element there of his character who is fucking with Alex's character, and it's very hard to play against somebody who is, for the most part, deliberately trying to annoy you, but then also, doing things that 10 times out of 10 are entirely different, and you never know what he's going to do. And I think how she handled her performance, which I think was probably the most difficult in the film, because you're playing opposite someone who takes the script and doesn't do anything in it, and yet still this ominous opponent, that you're playing chess with from a psychological level. She had to be constantly bouncing off of him, and I think the way that she's done it is formidable. But he in particular, given the roles that he's playing, he's a very special, gifted young man who I can't speak highly enough of.
That's awesome.
Great.
That's awesome.
So earlier we talked a little bit about Absence of War. You have another upcoming film according to your IMDb page called Sins. Is there anything...
I wouldn't believe what you read on IMDb. So,
don't tell us that.
No. Well, to be honest, they're both written. But a lot of what I've learned in this game is, and I think actually I'm going to steal this from Chris McQuarrie and his podcast and his Twitter. You go through the doors that open for you. I'm so used to banging doors down that I'm going to try and learn a little bit of both, which is I'll keep banging doors down I want to open, but I'll also, in an effort to tell more of the stories that I've written, I'll make the ones that the market lets me. And so I've just set up Absence of War with someone amazing. But again, you can't. Here's the thing, you IMDb only goes off sort of announcements type stuff. So there's stuff I'm working on I can't talk about who it's with. But if it becomes real and then it gets announced, I'm very, very excited about. So the stuff I'm focusing on at the moment is a United Nations series you remember Band of Brothers? It's a bit
Yes,
like that,
HBO.
but
Yeah.
about the UN and their true stories of staff in the field. And I've partnered with someone who's a genuine dream come true, incredible filmmaker who's, I'm loving every moment that we work on this amazing project together. And actually, I'm in 8 hours getting on a flight to East Timor, which is on the other side of the planet with the United Nations, because it's the 20-year anniversary of the independence of East Timor. So what we're doing is I'm working on that, which is a series, which is sort of an anthology mini series. So each season is a different crisis, dramatized over a narrative season. So the idea is that, I do East Timor, and then you go to another UN advocate who tells an amazing story in Congo, and then one in Darfur. And so I'm working on that.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it's taken me 9 years of research and working with the UN on it. But it's of all the things I've got, it's the one sort of project that might actually do some good in the world. But also it's the stories are true and they are just incredible. So I'm working on that, and then I'm far along-ish with an original kids movie that's a bit like E.T. and Goonies and the stuff that we all grew up on. So I'm keeping my fingers crossed that that's the next feature I get to direct, but who knows?
I really appreciate what you said about the UN. My father actually worked there for a few years.
Mate.
Yeah, as a kid, I got to go to the UN on Saturdays when it was like almost empty. I got to run around. So just hearing you talk.
What did you do there?
My dad was he worked for the Mission of Senegal, where I'm originally from.
Oh, amazing.
And he worked very closely with the UN. He was there almost every day. And so hearing you say that, and like just given a chance to get these people highlighted the way that I think they deserve.
Well, that's it. And I
they
think
do so much great work around the world, and I think like so much of it goes unnoticed. That
there's a big misconception about who these people are. Everyone thinks the UN has its own army. It does not. None of them are, Captain America charging into rescue.
So hearing you talk about this project, that means a lot to me.
Yeah, 99% of UN staff are just ordinary people who, for whatever reason in their personal lives, just decide to go and help someone that needs help, and importantly, regardless of their nationality or gender or sexuality or, nationality, if someone needs help, you go help. You don't ask why, or you don't say, well, where are they from? And then I'll decide. You just go do it. And I think they're, especially given what's going on in the world at the moment, it's I'm hoping for some, Lady Luck comes and visits us, and we get this project away, because it's incredibly meaningful given the state of the world at the moment.
Well, I'll definitely support it. That's awesome. Thank you so much.
Thanks for telling us about that. So I guess we can kind of start wrapping up a little bit here, but we talked about a lot of different things regarding how the film is made and what goes into it and what got you inspired to do more. And there's going to be a lot of filmmakers who will probably be listening to this pod. So if there's like maybe a takeaway that you could tell them about, or some advice you could give them.
Oh God, quit, go and find another job. I think, there's a few things. One of them is, I think listening to your own instinct is absolutely key, because here's the thing, as a writer director, there's always going to be people that don't like your work or say no. Rejection is part of everyday existence. You literally have to just take those, try and find things that are useful in any critiques, and then move on and believe in yourself and believe in your own voice. Because when you stop believing in your own voice and you question it is when it all goes to shit. And, there are, over the years of trying to get my first film made, there's been a number of instances where you sort of doubt yourself. But at the end of the day, you just have to, I think the key I've sort of trying to take with me is, one is your own. You've got to make movies that you're proud of yourself and that you want to go and see. And if people don't like them, that's okay. As if you like them, you're your own worst critique. And I know where my weaknesses are, but you have to take your hits and keep moving forward. I think that is that a line from Rocky? But it's true.
Rocky Balboa.
Yeah, you have to take the hits and you got to keep going because
it's not about how hard you can get hit. It's about how hard. It's not about how hard you hit. It's about how hard you can get hit and keep getting back up.
Yeah.
Well, that is gospel because it's absolutely true. And actually, by the way, I should have mentioned Rocky in my childhood years because I've also watched that stuff on repeat, and it's in
You're accidentally quoting it. So
it's in my iTunes and my gym routine and all the rest of it. But anyway, but it is absolutely true. You have to be able to take a step back and listen to what bits you want to, but also just have that belief that you're making something that you think is decent and go for it. And then also, when you do get your wins, don't over celebrate. In my first 2 years of living in LA, I had projects set up with a bunch of enormous people that didn't get made. So you just kind of have to take your good news as like, okay, that's a small win, I'll take it. And then your bad news is like, well, all right, fuck it, what can I learn? And just keep going, because it's a very frustrating, slow business. But when you get to those moments where you're directing your actors on set and there is a partnership there, it is so rewarding and addictive, and I cherish those moments and look forward to the next ones because it makes it all the hardship, it makes it all worth it. And that's not to say when you're given advice, but more than anything, take the advice that you merit from people that you look up to, and because their voice joined with yours, it really is a collaboration. And then also when it comes to the people that you're making your film with, I can't remember who said it, maybe it was a Ron Howard documentary or something, but it's very difficult to deliver your vision of your movie unless you have a team who can help you deliver your vision. And a lot of that comes down to the talented people that you get to put around you. And I think that's an incredibly important thing, because I can draw on a piece of paper what I want something to look like, and how I want to feel. But if from someone like myself that isn't technically minded, but I can describe what I want something to look like and to feel like, if you then can't translate that onto screen, something's wrong. And it's a technical hindrance on yourself, but it's also needing to find people that can help you deliver on your vision for something. And I think that's I think that comes down to making sure that you've got the strongest technical team around you who also understands the vision of what you're trying to deliver in the first place. And just don't give up. Eliana is a great example. Whether you're a writer, director, actor, if you believe in yourself and you really want it, it's the people that quit that don't, that falter. You just got to keep going. That's my biggest sort of takeaway from it.
Okay. All right. Well, typically in the Film Exiles fashion, what we normally do is we have a small little segment, or basically a question we ask. We call it Exiled for a Reason. And basically what that is you give your hottest film take. So I guess you could say your most unpopular opinion in regards to a film or about film that maybe you think would make you some enemies or
this sounds like a dangerous fucking question.
We did
something
this.
that's going to piss people off, and then you're going to get trolled the shit out.
We did this event on the timeline, like when we first got started about a year ago, and we heard some of the craziest things. And I was
people together, honestly.
It really did. It was really great to see like everybody come out and because I feel like a lot of times people are afraid to say how they really feel about certain things because they're afraid of that blowback that you just mentioned. but it was
I'm
really
not being funny. I'm starting to experience. Fortunately, most of the comments I'm getting on social media are very, very heartwarming and lovely. However, 1% is like,
yeah,
"I hope you died, David Raymond,
that
director."
bad. Wow.
Well, not quite, but there's been one or two where I'm like, really? That's what you say to me? Like,
All I did was make a movie.
yeah.
But yeah,
Well,
you don't have to like target like you don't. It's not targeted harassment or anything.
just an opinion that goes against the grain. It's not about
okay, I'll give you a couple, but these might be really wet. So, and I think I've already mentioned it. I happen to think that Michael Bay's Transformers, the first one, is one of the best kids slash I enjoyed it as an adult movies made of our generation.
yeah, that's that we all agree on that
A
one.
lot of people shit over him and blah blah
Yeah.
blah. I don't like what he did to the Dinobots. I think that was sacrilege and cursed when I saw it. However, I think what he's done, and especially that first movie, I still watch to this day and look up to and aspire to. So
Yeah.
they,
Yeah, we're big Michael Bay fans. A lot of the people on the pod that contribute to the podcast, we really think that his work is underappreciated. And all you said before about people's sacrifice and how much work goes into this, we completely agree with all of that, and that's
right.
why we wanted to start this pod, because we felt that there was like so much unfair treatment of artists. Like whenever somebody makes a movie that's disliked, it's just things just got so out of proportion, and we just felt that we had to.
Well, yeah, it's like here's the thing: when you hear stories of, and I'm sure people can Google this because I met this human being and was not a fan. But when you hear of directors who don't bother turning up to their own set, so another director has to direct their movie because they're too
Oh,
fucking lazy, or because they're busy getting drunk or being unprofessional, I think that is like winning a lottery ticket and then wiping your ass with it. And there are millions of people that would die to get their hands on that ticket. And I think that I don't agree with behavior like that. I think it's it's already hard
Unprofessional.
enough. So when you get your shot, you do everything that you possibly can to fight for it and make sure you earn your next one. And I think that's that's how I look at it. But in light of that, when I say that it's incredibly difficult, it's beyond anything I ever thought it was. I survived on 9 months with probably 2 or 3 hours sleep a day, and having played a load of sport, I've had 9 knee operations. I couldn't walk after Nomis for 6 months.
oh,
Like
really? Wow.
without ache. I mean, obviously I could walk, but without truly aching and getting up at night to go and take a piss and hobbling like an old man because the cold and the winter gear. And as the director on these sets, it's your job to try and keep energy levels up so that you can get through and get the footage that you need. And when you're there every day with that amount of sleep, with a shonky knees anyway, with these heavy snow boots on, it does take an effect on you. And I only realized after I'd finished filming and slept for 2 weeks, and then you start getting up to walk and you're like, everything hurts. What else can I say that's okay, here's another one. I thought Endgame was phenomenal, but I thought Infinity War was fucking amazing.
Ah,
Ah,
okay.
okay.
So
That's
Infinity War is better than Endgame.
I think Infinity War was their best one. And
was
trust
it?
me, I saw Endgame 4 times.
We saw you. We
Not
saw you
actually.
really.
I saw Endgame
You were
4
all
times.
over D23. So we assumed that you were a big Marvel fan.
Oh no, I am, but look, I grew up. I love Marvel, and I think that
As we do too.
what they've achieved is just beyond incredible. And I think, especially when the Russos came in, Civil War was just amazing. I think Infinity War was just perfection when it comes to filmmaking, and Endgame was just amazing. However, I am a Superman, Star Wars even He-Man nerd from my childhood.
Thundercats,
so,
huh?
And so yesterday I spent most of the day trying to find bootlegged footage of what JJ showed in his reel and couldn't find it online.
I think JJ is notorious for his for his secrecy, so I don't think anything's coming out until he
I
wants
was
it
lucky
to.
enough to meet him once. So,
Oh,
and
really?
yeah, it was. I pitched him something, and this was before I directed anything, and I was sitting on his sofa in his office. Which even in itself, the Bad Robot offices are amazing because their waiting room has toys everywhere. So you're literally there going, I'm going to bring a sleeping bag and not leave.
Yeah.
And I met him and was sort of running him through a pitch book of mine. And I said I'm a writer director, and he said, yeah, I know, I can tell. And
That's
it
awesome.
meant more to me than anything. And maybe he was just being nice, but it was sort of one of those moments where you're like, well, if he's saying that, then I am. I should keep going.
I'm legitimate.
Yeah, but I can't wait to see what he does.
Have you met Chris McQuarrie? You talk about him a lot.
I haven't met him, but I like his sensibility. I thought Fallout was just amazing, but I like how much he gives to the next generation. And I've learned a lot. I've never met the man, but I've learned a lot from just listening to him.
That's very important.
It's very generous. There's other filmmakers like that who take the time to say, well, look, here's the why of how I did it and why I did it, because there is a brain behind the why of it, and that is something that I think a lot of it is instinct, but the more you listen to people like that you aspire to, the more it teaches you how to speak the language and understand why your instinct is telling you to do something a certain way. And how good was Fallout? I'm not being funny, but I texted Henry when I came out of the ArcLight Dome and said, mate, I've never been more proud of listening to 1,000 people cheer when you took a hook to the face.
Fallout is incredible. I think my favorite sequence is when Tom Cruise is chasing Henry through London, and I think that sequence is just amazing.
It is.
Or the
motorbike. There's so many good moments in that
the cycle scene through Paris.
And that's just it. You half of me is jealous because you're like, okay, you guys had a month to film the toilet fight. I had 3 hours to film my fight on set at 4 in the morning.
I actually think that it was only supposed to take 2 weeks, but they needed more time.
I mean, look, it's that's something and I'm sure everyone aspires to. But what I actually love about Macquarie's stuff is that there's such patience and heart to a lot of his work that isn't just the big spectacle. Like there's a scene where Rebecca Ferguson's character is following Tom Cruise, and the way I just thought it was awesome. So,
yeah. That is another great scene. And then
those little quiet moments for me make it.
And then they meet in the midst of those trees, and they have that. Yeah, that's a great scene. Yeah, I love that one as well.
Well, yeah, we really, really appreciate you having you on. It's been a very spirited discussion. we touched on things that we went off script.
I gotta ask, David. So you said you're a big sports fan. So are you into? I'm guessing you're into football.
As we call it, soccer. Yeah.
No, I said football. I said football for a reason.
I wonder what it's gonna be.
I've been to one American football game and I thought it was cool. I couldn't understand why everyone kept stopping. I've been to a baseball game where I heard the and I thought something was going to happen and no one did anything. What's that amazing Tom Hanks movie with Gene Davis? Such a great film about women's baseball.
A League of Their Own. Own. Yes.
Okay, now that's, again, one of my favorite movies. Going to a baseball game is nothing like that.
Yeah.
So I was very disappointed. But I've been to a couple of basketball games, and that's much more fun because stuff happens.
I was asking about football on the other side of the pond.
Oh, soccer, yeah. I love playing it. Not a huge fan of watching it.
You're not? So you don't have a favorite team or anything?
From 11 to the age of 15, I think I was a junior gunner. So I've always been an Arsenal fan.
Oh, really?
Until I hurt my knee. But I'm much more. I like my rugby and my cricket. I just, I'm the English sort of. I like playing it. I'm not one to spend all day watching sports.
Okay, I get that.
Yeah.
You being a junior gunner is actually really, really cool.
It's cool until you realize there's like thousands of kids doing it and you think you're like one of 20 and you're not, but I'll just keep pretending I was. I could have made it.
Yeah.
Thank God I didn't. Otherwise, I'd never be here.
And we have Nomis to look forward to. / night watch. Night
Hunter.
Yes.
Do you have any like shout outs you want to give or any other last comments you want to make, David?
No, I think it's, I appreciate the support and, it's, everyone thinks because of the cast that we got, it's this huge movie. And trust me, I think if this movie had been made 10 years ago, we'd be in lots of cinemas around the world. But, I think the independent film space has been going through a massive transition in the last few years. And so I just, if you like the movie, please support it and get the word out, because that's the nature of the beast these days. And I just want people to watch the movie and see the amazing work my cast has done, because I think they deserve the recognition for doing it. They've really gone above and beyond, and I think the more people sing their praises, the quieter I sleep.
Okay, well, we definitely will. It's been great talking to you, and it's been great, getting into all the nitty gritty, the behind the scenes.
Say one more thing.
Yeah.
If you are recording the movie, don't post scenes that reveal certain twists. Fucking everyone. I get tagged in all this stuff, so I see what you lot are doing who are posting reveals. It's not funny, so don't do it. But by all means, post nice stuff about the cast, because that's always nice.
Well, we'll go ahead and wrap up now. So where can you find the Film Exiles, and why would you want to find us? Well, there's been especially a few really great reasons as of late. Of course, we have David and some news that just broke at the time of recording this. That is right. The Desaad news from the Snyder Cut of Justice League. Very, very interesting stuff. So definitely check out our website, theexilesnetwork.wordpress.com. You can find us at Twitter at The Film Exiles. That's our podcast name. Our network name is at The Exiles Net. We're on Instagram at The Exiles Network, YouTube, The Exiles Network, Vero, The Film Exiles. We are on Tumblr, RIP Tumblr, you died too soon. And you can email us at thefilmexiles@gmail.com. Where can they find you, David?
On my terrible Instagram handle, Stingray. Yeah, you don't need to look me up. Just follow all the cast and, be nice about Night Hunter. And thank you very much, guys. I appreciate it.
Oh, thank you very much for taking the time to do this.
Awesome.
This was a great time.
Cool.
And Manu, where can they find you?
You can find me at ManUnited0710 on Twitter.
Great.
Wait, you're a Man U fan?
Yes.
Oh God, I'm pleased you didn't tell me that at the start. This would have gone very differently. You'd have just yes and no answers. David, you didn't like rugby before. Yep.
Well, I kind of guessed that when you told us you were an Arsenal gunner. So I kind of think this worked out pretty damn well.
Yeah, great. All right, bye.
Damn, I was kind of hoping we get you back.
Maybe.
When you meet Chris, you gotta get us on. So. All right. And then you can find me at Millennial Mike, and that's Velcro16, VELKRO16. That's Velcro spelled wrong with a K. Thank you, everybody, and we will talk to y'all later. Bye.
Thanks, guys.
And we're out. All right. Oh,
Hey,
David,
cheers,
that was great, David. Thank you so much.
Yeah, it was good fun. I enjoyed it.
Oh, so did we. So did we.
If I get the next one made, we can keep chatting because there's a few secret shit I didn't tell you lot, but I just need a bit of luck, get it away, and then we'll be good.
Okay, great. That'd be awesome. And also, like, would you be interested in coming back after we've seen the movie? I would really like.
You can. I can run you through some of the twists and turns and all.
Yeah. For us to do like a spoiler-filled spot, we can just talk more in depth about the movie itself, because
that'd be wonderful.
We'll do a spoiler podcast on how many times you can spot Dave Raymond pretending to be the other actors in the movie.
Oh, that's cool. That's cool. Because we know that Snyder does the same as well on his set as well.
Oh no, his is not through desperation of needing footage. Mine's like, okay, I'm going to put Henry's coat on because we don't have him anymore. I'm going to be the expert, and now I'm Brendan's hand, and no, that's my head, not Kingsley. Yeah, I'm everywhere.
You shave your head?
No, God
no. So how is it your head and there's hair on it?
Driving, sir, driving.
Oh wow!
Keep an eye for all that when I go watch.
Yeah, good times. Glamour of Hollywood.
Oh, that's hilarious.
Oh, right. Seriously, thank you, David.
Thank you. We know you're busy, man. We appreciate your time. We really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thanks, guys. Cheers.
All right, bye.
Bye.